Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elizabeth Anderson, and I'm the Executive Director of the World Justice Project, and delighted to be your host today for this very exciting event, the culmination of our almost year-long effort of the World Justice Challenge to present awards to 6 very deserving projects. This has been a group effort of our entire community over the past year. We have gathered our community in order to really understand from the ground up the rule of law dynamics that were playing out in the context of the pandemic. What the challenges that are being faced by our colleagues around the world, and importantly, to crowdsource the most effective solutions to this very significant crisis. I want to say a special thanks to many of those community members who worked with us over this past year, our sponsors and partners reflected in this slide, and you will see and hear from many of them over the course of today's program. I want to recognize also the judges, 13 of whom put their heads together to help us identify the winners you'll meet today. I want to say a special thanks to my colleagues at the World Justice Project. This very committed and talented and creative staff has worked tirelessly over the last year to turn our challenge competition into this virtual community of learning. And finally, a very special thank you to all 425 participants in this competition for sharing your knowledge and learning and ideas with us. And very importantly, for the work that you do every day. We are all of us in society winners for the work that you do. A word about the program today. It will last 90 minutes. An early invitation sent to some participants indicated that it would be 60 minutes, but be sure to stick around for all 90 minutes so that you can hear from all of the winners. We will be recording today's event. So I want to make sure that folks know that. Important links and resources will be posted in the chat, and so you can follow that throughout the proceedings. Our program will come in 3 parts. We'll first start with some welcoming remarks and introduction from our founder and CEO, Bill Newcomb, and Jim Silkenet, member of our board and chair of the judges panel for the competition. We'll then turn to hear from 4 judges in the competition in a high-level discussion about the challenges that the World Justice Challenge has sought to address. And then we'll turn to the very exciting presentation of our 6 prizes. So without further introductory note, let me turn it over to WJP's founder, CEO, and inspiration, Bill Newcomb.
Thank you, Betsy, very much, and good day to all of you. And thank you for your participation in this important undertaking. Just by way of setting some context for today's proceedings, let me share with you just a few slides and words describing the mission and the vision and the work of the World Justice Project. Our mission is to advance the rule of law worldwide. And our vision is a world filled with communities delivering, with rule of law communities, delivering justice, opportunity, and peace. We have to start any discussion and any activity with a clear understanding of the meaning of the rule of law. Too often it is thrown out as though people knew what it meant, and many people do not bother defining it or understand what it means. Here is what we think it means, and we have tried this definition in front of lots of audiences. We continue to try to tweak it to improve it. Here is today's version of our definition. The rule of law is a durable system, _system, made up of laws, institutions, norms, and community commitment. That system delivers 4 universal goods. The first is accountability of public and private actors. The second is just laws. By that we mean laws which are clear, are reasonably stable, are well publicized, and are applied evenly, and most importantly, protect human rights, property rights, and contract rights. The third is open government, a government which is open to the members of the community so they can know how laws are made, how they are administered, and how they are enforced. And finally, accessible, impartial justice, a means of people resolving their disputes in a peaceful fashion based on evidence and rational decisions being made. Knowing what the rule of law means in a shared sense, the next question is, why do we bother advancing the rule of law? How does it matter? Why does it matter? Does it matter? Here is some evidence which compels our mission. The first is the positive correlation between the rule of law as we define it and economic development. This scatter plot shows you that the more rule of law a country has, the higher its GDP. The next slide shows you the positive correlation between the rule of law and socio-political development, in this case measured in terms of peacefulness. This slide shows you that the more rule of law as you go along the lower axis, the less risk, the more peace that community can enjoy. And the third area of development, perhaps in some ways the most important, human development. Here's an example of the way in which the rule of law has a positive correlation to infant mortality. As this chart shows us, the more rule of law, the lower the infant mortality rate in that country in question. So it does matter. It matters in a very material and important way, which is why we say the rule of law is the foundation of functional communities of justice, opportunity, and peace. How does the World Justice Project go about advancing the rule of law? In these three lines of our work, we focus first on research and scholarship, creating knowledge about the rule of law. Our effort in this area is largely concentrated on our consortium of scholars. These are world-class scholars from all around the world. There are now currently 75 or so on our roster, and these are people devoted to doing research and scholarship and indeed teaching about the meaning, the measurement, and the mattering of the rule of law. Our second focus is our rule of law index. You probably all are well aware of this. It is, we can say with some pride, that it is the world's leading source for independent data on the rule of law. We now cover over 130 countries with our indexing. That's 95% of the world's population. As they say, you can't do anything about it if you can't measure it, and we are the people in the field who are measuring it. And finally, our global network, which is featured in today's proceedings. The notion is to have hundreds and thousands of organizations doing good work to advance the rule of law in the same network so that they can communicate and collaborate and multiply the effectiveness of their programs towards advancing the rule of law. So we welcome you again to this. In the final slide, it gives you an idea of where these 30 finalists reside. As you can see, it's quite good coverage of the map of the world. And let me now yield to Jim Silkinen to talk about this particular competition. And let me just say one more time, thanks to all of you who have made this possible. It is the seminal event for us during 2021, and we couldn't do it without all of you. And there will be, I think, large returns on the investments that you have made to participate in this competition. Thank you. Jim.
Bill, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It is now my job to tell you a bit more about this year's World Justice Challenge, how it was organized, and what a pleasure it has been to work with our finalists and with our judges. Given the exceptional nature of the pandemic, the World Justice Project decided to focus our attention on the many ways that change makers on the ground are responding to that crisis and doing their part to defend and promote the rule of law. And we invited project entries in 4 categories: access to justice for all, accountable governance, anti-corruption and open government, and fundamental rights and non-discrimination. We dedicated a 5th prize to honor the legacy of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her work championing women's rights. And further, to engage as many of you as possible, we organized a network popular vote to determine a sixth winner. In all, World Justice Project received 425 applications from 114 countries, a really remarkable global response. 38% of these responses, nominations came from Africa and the Middle East, 24% from Europe, Central Asia, and North America, 21% from the Asia Pacific, and 17% from Latin America and the Caribbean. Most of our nominations, our applications, 72%, were submitted by civil society or nonprofit organizations. But we also received significant submissions from local and national governments, judiciaries, social business entrepreneurs, law firms, multilateral organizations, and academic institutions. The breakdown by thematic category for us this year, of the 425 applications, 37% came in the access to justice for all category, 32% fundamental rights and non-discrimination, 18% accountable governance, and 13% anti-corruption and open government. With the help of our thematic partners for the challenge this year, we narrowed the pool to 30 finalists, distributed evenly across these 4 thematic categories, along with 10 honorable mention candidates. These projects were selected based on their impact, their sustainability, and their potential for scaling and replication. We featured the finalists, our 30 finalists, on our website and on our new community platform, and we organized 4 virtual regional showcases for the finalists to present their work. The quality of the finalist projects was extraordinarily high, making the judges' task to select winners in each of those categories all that much more difficult. They were all exceptional and all were impressive. It's been my honor to chair our panel of 13 expert judges from around the globe, many of whom are with us today. They come with decades of experience in leadership roles in the judiciary, at the United Nations, as heads of state, lawyers, civil society campaigners. All of our judges share a passionate commitment to justice and the rule of law, as evidenced by their active participation in selecting today's outstanding winners. Thank you again to all of our participants in this year's challenge, and now back to Betsy to introduce our next speaker. Betsy.
Thank you very much, Bill and Jim, for those introductory remarks and for all the work and support that you have given to this competition over the last year. Now, to set the stage for the awards and to provide a survey of the rule of law landscape in which we find ourselves, in which this competition seeks to address, we are going to turn to our expert panel of 4 of the judges, led in a discussion by Lisa Tansey, the Vice President and General Counsel of Microsoft, Deputy General Counsel of Microsoft. Lisa.
Thank you, Betsy. It's my pleasure to be able to chair this experts panel on COVID-19 and the impact of on the rule of law around the world. We have today 3 exceptional leaders who have each played a critical role in upholding the values and practices of this comprehensive definition of the rule of law as Bill Newcomb laid out in his initial remarks. And our speakers, as you mentioned, also have kindly volunteered their time to serve as judges for this year's World Justice Challenge. So the purpose of the panel today is twofold. First, to highlight 3 or 4 to suggest paths forward that address these underlying root causes of justice and governance crises that so many countries around the world of Pakistan and also a member of the elders. So
Excuse me, Lisa, it may just be me, it's Bill Newcomb, but you're cutting in and out with your audio.
Perhaps if you take off your video, that will give us more bandwidth and we'll be able to hear you, Lisa.
oh dear.
That works.
Okay, all right, great. So Hina, you have been an outspoken champion at the United Nations, the World Justice Forum, and other venues for expanding access to justice for people who encounter any number of barriers to resolving everyday legal problems. How has the pandemic exacerbated these problems, including where you live in Pakistan?
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are at this time, to everyone and to everyone listening in. Let me first of all thank the organizers of the World Justice Challenge and the World Justice Project in particular for inviting us to be judges. I think this has been an opportunity for me in particular to learn how change makers are taking different actions around the world to bring about the changes in the realities that we are confronting and which we are endeavoring, in fact, to change all over the world. And I think it's also important because of the projection this particular challenge gives to civil society actions to bring about change as opposed to what the states are doing. It's very difficult in this short period to mention everything that has happened during this pandemic and how many sectors and how many sections of the populations around the world this particular pandemic has affected. Let me begin by saying that this is not just a health crisis. We must understand that this is, in fact, a human rights crisis. And the implications of many of the challenges we have faced during this period for human rights are very important to discern and to understand how, where we need to make our responses more effective, not just for this short period or just to overcome the challenges directly related to the pandemic, but in order to make sure that the injustices that this pandemic has exposed are also dealt with by those who are making decisions and those who are making programs globally. Let me just say that this pandemic has dramatically changed societies and around the globe. It has exposed inequalities, it has exacerbated injustices and contributed to a wave of protest and unrest in a growing number of countries. Now, I think that we all know that public resources everywhere are now under pressure. But in low-income countries, there is a particular crisis, and these have been very severely hit. And I believe that it's very important to mention here some issues. I don't think I can go into each one of them. But what has struck me as a human rights defender and an activist working with people on the ground is the lack of adequate social security system that has been exposed like never before. This has affected more of the marginalized and vulnerable communities, and a vast majority of the poorest have been left unsupported, resulting in increased poverty. And in my region, and not just my country, there have been these COVID-related and poverty-related suicides have increased. So let us not forget that what I'm saying is not just to dramatize the situation, but this is a reality that we are all confronting. And much of the problems that have arisen for these vulnerable communities is because of the lack of documentation. Because obviously, relief efforts and relief programs were serving those who were documented and under a particular system, but it was those who have been left out of the system who suffered the most. And I think in this category, I would include refugees, migrant workers, but also certain sections of the population, like in my country, transgender persons, persons living with disabilities, and many elderlies in poorer communities. So this is one thing that I think needs to be considered. I also think that one of the important things that I saw was that the coronavirus has laid bare the fragile healthcare system in many countries. You can look at India, for instance. Everywhere, even if in developed countries, the healthcare systems were under strain. But where we have, historically neglected to strengthen our healthcare system, we confronted problems even more drastically than others. Then I think there are those human rights and fundamental freedoms that were affected. The initial lockdowns, law enforcement agencies would round up violators and order them to be detained en masse, and this has been heard from many countries. And then I think what I want to emphasize here is that this pandemic succeeded in exposing the inhumane conditions to which prisoners are subjected, exposing the serious flaws in the administration of criminal justice system in many countries. And I'm here referring mostly to the region that I'm most familiar with, and that is South Asia. Then, of course, globally, women suffered. And we are hearing from everywhere that incidents of domestic violence, online violence were increased. The absence or inadequacies of the women protection systems in many countries were exposed, and many of these systems failed to serve women in distress in their hour of need. And these are some of the things I think we all felt needed to be addressed immediately. And I will finish here by also mentioning that the young people suffered. The impact of the pandemic on education everywhere is something that we are not only watching, but we will have to deal with this in order to overcome the harm and the gaps that this has left. I think the response in the coming period will lay the foundation for the medium-term economic and social recovery, and in order to shape the long-term societal outcomes. I think it's very important for us also to understand that in the governance context, what I missed at this time in my country was an empowered elected local government system. And I think where these systems, local governments, strong local governments, empowered local governments existed, the pandemic and the dealing with the pandemic and giving people relief became easier relatively than where these were absent or were weak. So these are some of the things that I think I should be mentioning in this context.
Thank you very much, Hina. And was Lisa able to rejoin us? I think she lost her connection. I will pinch hit for her until she's able to rejoin us. But thank you very much for that sobering survey of the circumstances and insights from your work. Let me turn now to a second speaker, another member of our judges panel, former president of Slovenia and currently the president of the Club of Madrid, Danilo Turk. President Turk, as a former head of state and in your various roles at the United Nations, you came to know firsthand the challenges governments face in managing crises and emergencies. How is this pandemic different from other crises you've seen and been a part of managing, and what impacts are you most concerned about in the areas of accountable governance and fundamental rights?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And before answering the questions, I would also like to say that I'm very pleased to be part of this, not only this prestigious panel, but this whole process, which has given us a unique opportunity to look into problems of the judiciary and justice in general in times of crisis, and also into the ingenuity of a wide variety of initiatives that we were able to study in our work. So this has been really a very special privilege. Now, I would also like to say that I very much agree with the diagnosis offered by Hina Gilani. Actually, I agree with every word of what she just said, and I don't have to repeat any of this diagnostically precise explanations of where we are and what our problems are. But answering to the question, I would like to be very succinct. We also have to be aware of our time limits. And I would like to say first, as to the nature of this emergency, it's different from anything that has been experienced in the past decades, in my opinion, and it is in a way a child of globalization, because this pandemic has affected more countries and more people in a shorter period of time than any other global pandemic in history. So this has been really very special in that regard. And the effects have been varied, the effects have been profound, and we do not yet understand the full dimension of problems that have arisen. And here again, Hina Gilani just told us about the problems that are there and others that we are likely to experience. As a European, I would like to say we share the same problems, although with less intensity, because the health system have proven to be inadequate. Even in Europe, which is very proud of its social model, even there we see deficiency, and the complacency which we had in the European Union so far is now shattered. So we have to seek solutions, again, along the lines of that Hina Gilani suggested. Now, the second part about the most immediate, effects, I would like to point out one thing which we in the Club de Madrid are going to discuss. We are establishing a special commission on democracy in emergencies. And now the emergencies that have appeared now open something that I would call creeping limitations of human rights. You don't have a single event which allows adoption of laws that curtail human rights, but you have a creeping process which undermine freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom through limitations in the media, expansive powers of executive, reducing the powers of legislative branch, and so forth. So we have a creeping process which undermines human rights on a very wide front. And this is something that we have to address, and it will not suffice to address it through legal means or legal analysis. It has to be addressed politically as well. And of course, in Club de Madrid, we'll look into that and make suggestions. And of course, there are specific social rights aspects which would require special attention, and Hina Gilani also spoke about that, and I may say more about it if there is time for that in the remainder of our panel.
Thank you very much, President Turk. And Lisa, welcome back. I'm going to make myself absent and let you take over the panel and bring Justice McLaughlin into the conversation.
Yeah, Betsy, thank you. I apologize. We had an electrical storm here the other night, and I think my internet is a little freaky. So please jump back in. If I drop off again, just take over, and because I don't want to interrupt anything. But our next speaker is Beverly McLaughlin. She is a former Chief Justice of Canada and a non-permanent judge of the Court of Final Appeal of Hong Kong. So Beverly, given your many years of experience sitting on Canada's High and your current role as judge in Hong Kong, what do you see as the most serious problems facing the judiciary in the face of lockdowns and unequal access to technology?
Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be part of this process of judging, culminating in this wonderful program. It's been a truly formative experience in many ways, and very, very encouraging, as others have said, to see the imagination and dedication that different people around the world have brought to easing the failings of justice in particularly in times of pandemic, but beyond. So it's I thank you for that, and I thank all of participants in our audience for being with us and for what they do for justice. Your question is a great one. From the point of view of a judge, from the point of view of the courts, what are our challenges right now? I'd like to talk pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, because I think we have to look at both. We knew that pre-pandemic, in many of our countries, our justice institutions, our courts, all the paraphernalia and other support institutions that go with the courts, were not doing as well as they should. I know in my country, Canada, we have had for many years persistent backlogs, which result in delay for justice. We have found that justice has become very expensive, which means that people of ordinary or less than ordinary means have trouble getting justice, and certainly everybody has trouble getting timely justice. We knew all this before the pandemic, but what the pandemic did was show us how serious these deficiencies were, and how already overstretched systems simply were unable to cope very well, or cope at all in some cases, with justice problems. At the same time, justice problems, if anything, were increasing. We know domestic violence was increasing around the world during the pandemic, due to people being very stressed, due to people having to live together, being unable to escape each other's company, and due to the terrible toll it was taking on people's lives. So we have this system, we have these systems that were already not performing very well. Then the pandemic comes along, and we see some of these systems shuddering to a halt. Courts actually closed their doors. Registries closed their doors. People couldn't come in to file documents. People couldn't go out of their houses often to even talk to a lawyer. So for a while, the justice system seemed to be shutting down. Well, what happened? We then found lawyers, judges, dedicated people, and justice seekers themselves saying, well, what can I do? And they started turning more to technology. They started setting up courts on platforms like Zoom or Microsoft or Google Meets, whatever. They started doing electronic filing. In other words, there's really no reason in this day and age why individuals have to go to a particular building, meet with somebody there, all of which are dangerous in the COVID era, and file a paper document. And they started looking at ways they could use scheduling and technology to make their institutions function more efficiently. So that part was quite hopeful. At the same time, we have to recognize that technology has its limits. I don't believe we will ever replace, for most cases, at least criminal cases, serious cases, the live courtroom, jury systems, whatever, with online systems. It simply is not as good for certain aspects of the system as in-person, face-to-face meetings with judges, lawyers, and individuals. So technology, even if we could get everyone able to use it, is not the whole answer. But I believe we have to use technology where we can, for e-filing, for preliminary applications, for bail hearings, many, many ways. Domestic disputes, sometimes we can get immediate help to people through using technology. That then presents us with another conundrum. If a system is built around, to some extent, using technology, what do we do about the fact that a lot of people cannot or do not use computers and the internet? In my country, the large cities and urban areas are well served by internet. But in the north, in the rural communities, the indigenous communities and others, they may have no access to internet. Or if it's an indigenous community, they may have internet in the band council and internet in the school, but the ordinary people don't have it in their homes. So we have to realize that if we want to make technology part of our system of justice, we're going to have to make it more accessible. Bandwidth, computers, education for people. And we have to supplement it in those cases where it doesn't work. All of this to say that I think that post-pandemic, we're going to have a reevaluation of our justice system. And we're going to have to say, we should say, what works, what doesn't work? How are we going to put together a truly 21st century justice system? Because our system was creaking along on the 21st century justice system. We were creaking along on 19th and 20th century norms. What they did in Victorian times was pretty much what they were doing in courts in 2010. Now we need to bring our system up to date. We need to figure out how we can use technology to help us do that, and where we want to continue with in-person hearings. We need to double our efforts to get access to justice. And I think we have to get a lot more help to people coming into the system, which is complex and sometimes difficult to access. And if we take advantage of this moment to do this reevaluation, we can really improve our justice system and improve access to justice. Thank you
very much, Justice McLaughlin. And I fear we've lost Lisa again, so I will do my best to fill her big shoes. And Justice McLaughlin, you turned our attention very helpfully to the future, and how can we learn from this very challenging year and build forward more strongly. And maybe if I can, we want to turn quickly to the presentation of the awards, but maybe I can ask Hina and Danilo also to chime in briefly with a minute or two. What do you see for the future and the path forward as the key steps?
I really agree with what has just been said, and much has already been said. So just let me say very briefly that we must be reminded and realize that the failure of justice systems really contributes to instability and insecurity. And when we talk about peace being linked to justice, let us remember that peace is not just absence of war, it is communities at peace. And therefore, I think we invest in justice systems that are involving communities and are based in empowering communities. That's why now we are kind of talking about people-centered justice rather than just institutions and formal systems. Now, people-centered justice obviously means that we take a broader view of the justice systems beyond courts, lawyers, formal justice institutions, to a network of actors who can provide justice. And that's why what I'm saying, when we invest in the justice system, we must also understand that we need multiple actors to be a part of this justice system to bring about real change. I think it's also important that when we talk about justice, we remember that it's not just legal system, it's also social justice, which can be delivered at the community level by bringing in mechanisms and introducing systems and processes whereby actual justice can be delivered and administered without having to go to courts. But those systems that have been tried have failed so far because, for instance, in many of the informal systems of justice, we see injustice, which is inherent in discrimination, cultural prejudices, especially against women or minority communities. So we have to be very careful where we are supporting community-based programs, but are supporting them in a way in which real justice can be done to people and not avoid any kind of formalization of the rule of law that applies also to community and traditional systems, so that the rule of law and all kinds of human rights principles are followed not just in terms of the legislation applicable to certain systems, but also in the approach that they take. And as a lawyer, I know that I am grappling both in the formal and in the informal system more with the approach than the law itself. The law is less flawed. The problem is the approach, because there is lack of sensitivity. We are grappling with a population that is unaware and therefore does not realize when discrimination occurs, and when they realize and recognize discrimination, how do they overcome those trends within their legal systems or their social systems. I think my hope really is with the engagement of governments and civil society with the SDGs. I think this provides a good platform for people to find innovative ways of overcoming their challenges, and also to be able to be in touch with each other so that we collectively find solutions to common problems. Maybe this will be done at a regional level or at a global level, but I do believe that this could, in many ways, strengthen our ability to meet these challenges.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And President Turk, the last word to you.
Thank you. Well, speaking about challenges, I see two categories. One is technological and the other is conceptual. On the technological side, I think it could be put in a nutshell with one word: digitalization. Well, we have to see how much digitalization and in which areas new technologies can help making the justice system, the system of administration of justice in the broadest meaning, more effective through technology. Obviously, filing court documents, certain hearings and so forth, that can be done. But court systems and judicial systems in general are rather conservative, and they don't easily accept changes. So that would be difficult to do. But digitalization is the way towards the future. And that's only the technological side. Now, we are going to face problems on the conceptual side as well. I have been following the chat in our conversation, and I see Hans Corell has reminded us of the rule of law document, guidelines for the politicians, which was done by the Raoul Wallenberg Institute and other partners. Now, I have translated that document on the rule of law in Slovenian language and distributed it to our parliamentarians well before the crisis. And the answer I got for the parliament is, well, we know all that. I mean, that's not necessary for us to study again. We know all that. Now, of course, we see that in their actual performance, they don't demonstrate that knowledge very well. So I will probably have to distribute that among the parliamentarians again and see whether now they are more receptive. But it is only an example of conceptual questions relating to the rule of law, which are not easy to ensure at the time of crisis. And the second aspect of this conceptual problem relates to those areas of rule of law which cannot be directly implemented through court action. I'm thinking about a vast array of social and economic rights which require social safety nets, which require institutions and arrangements which are not directly a matter of court protection. I mean, parts of them can be. Of course, non-discrimination is always a rule. But there are many aspects that are not directly protected by the court system. And for lawyers like us, this is a problem because we have to think more broadly. And again, in the spirit of diagnostic of Hina Giladi, we will have to do that. We'll have to see how to strengthen the institutional and other underpinnings that are necessary. Now, Club de Madrid, just one word, is suggesting that within the framework of the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, we try to convince the United Nations to convene a World Social Summit that would look specifically on the social dimension of reconstruction after COVID, because that's where some of the most serious problems are likely to arise and where an organized political will be necessary. Obviously, this is not for lawyers primarily, but lawyers should also be aware of that dimension as a part of the wider conceptual problem of how to overcome the effects of the current crisis.
Thank you very much to all three of you and to all of our judges. But this has been a very stimulating discussion. We could go on, I'm sure. It really drives home the importance of this effort that we are all engaged in to reinforce the rule of law. Each of you in different ways underscored the importance of technology and innovation, and also of the need to draw on the contributions of many actors, both in government and judiciaries, but also in civil society. And I think those are themes that we saw play out in our challenge competition as well. And so it frames the next part of our program perfectly as we turn to hear from a number of our colleagues from the judging panel and from our partner organizations to introduce and announce the winners in each of the 6 categories in the competition. To begin, we will start with the award for Access to Justice for All. Presenting this award is David Stoyer. David is a litigation partner at the law firm of Wilson Sonsini, Goodrich, and Rosati, which is a member of the World Justice Project's League of Law Firms and a great supporter of our efforts to advance the rule of law. David, over to you.
Thank you, Betsy. And thank you, Betsy, and thank you and to the World Justice Project staff for their diligence and competence in administering this challenge. The first award presented today is for the theme of access to justice for all. As we have heard, the pandemic has significantly worsened an already serious global gap in access to justice. In 2019, prior to the pandemic, WJP's research estimated that 5.1 billion people globally have unmet justice needs, including 2.1 billion people employed in the informal economy. These numbers, as dismaying as they are, have certainly worsened due to the pandemic. To respond to this crisis, the World Justice Challenge encouraged project entries that sought to remedy the barriers to access to justice posed or exacerbated by the pandemic. These remedies include facilitating the functioning of justice systems disrupted by the pandemic, addressing the strained capacity of justice systems to meet growing justice demands, countering gender-based violence, and attending to the needs of migrants, refugees, and other forcibly displaced persons. To help us shape the problem statement and select the many good actually outstanding finalists in the Access to Justice for All category, the World Justice Project worked closely with the Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just, and Inclusive Societies and the International Development Law Organization. Thank you very much. We're grateful to them for their many contributions. And before announcing the winning project, I'd first like to recognize the 8 finalists, all of them really terrific and deserving, although only one can win. The 8 finalists are first, Ability to Pay, Global Justice Solutions, United States. Second, Addressing Online Violence Against Women and Gender Minorities in Pakistan, from the Digital Rights Foundation in Pakistan. Third, COVID-19, Seguras en Casa, COVID-19, Women Safe at Home, from UNDP in Mexico City, Mexico. Fourth, Improving Maya Women's Access to Justice in Rural Guatemala, from the Women's Justice Initiative in Guatemala. Fifth, Increasing Access to Justice and Providing Legal Education through Online Learning Platforms and Virtual Courts, from Justice Defenders in Kenya, Uganda, Gambia, and regionally. Sixth, the Legal App from the Colombia Ministry of Justice and Law in Colombia. Seventh, Rainbow, chatbot to support victims of domestic abuse, AI for Good, South Africa and globally. And finally, Supporting Survivors' Women's Rights, from the Lotus Flower in Iraq. Congratulations and thank you again to all the 8 finalists. But the winner is Justice Defenders for its project on increasing access to justice and providing legal education through online learning platforms and virtual courts in Kenya, Uganda, Gambia, and regionally. The judges selected this project as an impressive example of empowering prisoners and prison staff through legal training and education and facilitating access to the courts during the pandemic for incarcerated persons that have previously found that they could not get their issues before a tribunal in any meaningful way. And here with us today to accept the award on behalf of Justice Defenders is Miriam Wachira, who's the Country Director of Kenya Programs. Miriam, you look happy to hear this, and I'll put it over to you for a few comments. Thank you.
Oh, how exciting. I'm beyond excited. Very, very happy. Thank you very much for these awards. Justice defenders all over the world are honored by this award. This award will go a long way to facilitate defenseless communities in Kenya, Uganda, Gambia, and wherever else that we'll be going soon, to tell their stories. And that is our main aim, to help people tell their stories in prisons. We are very, very honored. It will support the running of our legal offices in prisons, which in fact will mean that prisoners receive much needed legal services. More inmates will be trained as paralegals, and legal offices will be better equipped to serve our clients. We do find joy in building common causes and creating unlikely allies on both ends of adversary justice system. We are glad that the World Justice Challenge has joined the community of justice defenders. We are stronger with you to defend the defenseless and to place the power of the law in the hands of the defenseless. Thank you very much. We are totally honored, and we accept this prize with humility, solidarity, and bravery. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and congratulations, Miriam. You honor us by your participation in this competition, and we've all learned a great deal from you and your colleagues, and look forward to continuing to do so. So now we will turn to the award for accountable governance, and I will invite Laura Chinchilla, the former president of Costa Rica and vice president of the Club of Madrid, to present that award. President Chinchilla.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello to everybody who is connected from all around the world. It is a pleasure to be here today. First of all, I want to thank the invitation on behalf of the Club de Madrid to be part of this wonderful initiative, which every year encourage many individuals and organizations to engage in good practices aimed at strengthening the rule of law, democratic governance, and the protection of human rights. The second award presented today is in the area of accountable governance. During this pandemic, the world witnessed a dramatic increase in the use of emergency powers, the diminished ability of legislatures and judiciaries to operate, disrupted electoral processes, and the shrinking of political space for civil society organizations and the media to check executive powers. In order to counter these threats to accountable governance, the World Justice Challenge encouraged project entries that address concerns regarding the use of emergency powers, the functioning of legislatures, judiciaries, and oversight bodies, the safeguarding of electoral processes, and the protection of non-governmental checks on all aspects of government power. In these processes, we were not alone. We had the valuable support of two important organizations. The World Justice Project would like to recognize the contributions of its accountable governance thematic partners, International IDEA, and the International Legal Assistance Consortium. Thank you so much for your help and support throughout the challenge process. Before announcing the winner organization, I would first like to recognize the 7 finalists in the accountable governance category. They are civic digital participation in legislation during the COVID-19 crisis, by Foundation for Public Participation in Latvia. Second, the Gray Zone by Public Verdict Foundation from Russia that brought some responses to people in prisons. The third is integration of community video conference with e-course litigation by UNDP in Bhutan. The fourth is making justice, judiciary response for justice for COVID-19 by the Conselho Nacional de Justiça from Brazil. The fourth is overcoming, or the fifth is overcoming judicial accessibility in times of COVID-19 and beyond by the Constitutional Court of Ecuador. The sixth is Pacific Judicial Strengthening Initiative by the Federal Court of Australia. And the seventh is TELA by Horizontal, a global initiative already applied in Myanmar and Belarus. The 7 projects in this thematic group deserve our prize. All of them managed to positively impact the problem they set out to address, the COVID-19 pandemic. I invite you to go over them. I'm sure that you will find great ideas and inspiration from these initiatives. So congratulations again to the 7 finalists. And the winner is Horizontal for its mobile application being deployed around the world in such complex situations as Myanmar and Belarus. We, the judges, selected this project as a versatile, secure, and customizable tool for documenting government abuses, including violence, human rights violations, corruption, and electoral fraud, and for holding governments accountable. This open source application is a response to growing needs by civil society groups, human rights organizations, and journalists in the face of surveillance and censorship. Here with us today is Rafael Mimon, founder and head of programs, to accept the award on behalf of Horizontal. So congratulations again, Rafael, over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you, everyone. This is incredible. It's an incredible recognition. And it was already incredible to be recognized as a finalist with all these incredible other projects, each of which were, had incredible impact, and we're very amazed at what everyone has been doing. And it's really an honor to receive this award and to receive the support and recognition from this community. Tela, our mobile app, was launched 2 years ago. It's an app that protects human rights defenders and people trying to collect evidence of human rights violations, and protects the data they collect as well, so it can be used for accountability processes. It was used in Belarus during the election in August 2020. It's been used in Myanmar for the past few months since the military coup, and in other places around the world. So we are incredibly happy and very honored to be recognized by this award and by the World Justice Project. And I think this is going to help us get more people to have access to the app and continue developing the app to make it usable and useful to more people around the world. So thank you so much. It's a great honor to everyone.
Thank you very much, President Chinchilla, and Raphael. Congratulations to you and your colleagues, and thank you for this really important work. We're reminded every day of the importance of tools like you have developed to protect those on the front lines of these important causes. I turn now to invite Leslie Tsai, another of our judges, to present the award for anti-corruption and open government. Leslie is the Director of Social Impact at the Chandler Foundation, another important partner of the World Justice Project in this challenge competition. And Leslie served as a member of our judges panel. Leslie.
Thank you, Betsy, and thank you to the World Justice Project to have this opportunity to be amongst such impressive organizations doing the good work on the ground, and to be amongst such an esteemed panel of judges. So the third award presented today is for the theme of anti-corruption and open government. And the COVID-19 pandemic gave rise to significant corruption risks, as speed often came at the expense of integrity. Governments mobilized massive resources to respond to the health and economic crisis. At the same time, many governments took emergency measures that suspended open government and procedures meant to prevent corruption. Corruption risk is a rule of law problem, but it also has broader implications. Corruption compromises the pandemic response, undermining much needed trust in public institutions and squandering supplies and resources meant to go to those in need. To respond to this crisis, the World Justice Challenge encouraged project entries that safeguarded funds aimed at addressing the health and economic crisis, and strengthened the integrity and transparency of the decision-making process, leading to emergency and recovery measures. And before announcing the finalists and the winner, the World Justice Project would first like to thank the Open Government Partnership and the OECD for shaping this theme on anti-corruption and open government, as well as for helping to select the finalists in this category. So before announcing the winning organization, I'd like to first recognize all 7 finalists in the anti-corruption and open government category. They are: a civil campaign to end abuse of government powers by Transparency International Hungary Foundation. A Paltipop by ondata.it of Italy. Constructing Transparency, Promoting Justice in Honduras through Good Governance and Strong Public Management. Asociación para una Sociedad Más Justa. OCDX, an open contracting analytics research platform for business intelligence and stakeholder monitoring of Philippine government procurement by LayerTech Software Labs. Purchasing Observatory COVID-19 by Poder Ciudadano of Argentina. Evaluating critical public services during COVID-19 through Citizen Voice by CIMA of Uganda. And using data to evaluate whether COVID-19 relief funds improved access to economic opportunity for those most impacted by the crisis by Project on Government Oversight of the United States. Congratulations again to all 7 finalists. And the winner today is Asociación para una Sociedad Más Justa, or ASJ. The judges selected this project because of the impressive concrete outcomes that resulted from ASJ's investigations into the corrupt management of COVID funds. ASJ worked effectively with media, civil society, and government to uncover and build outrage against the misuse of healthcare funds, which ultimately led to the prosecution of corrupt actors. ASJ's ability to work across stakeholder groups to mobilize action and accountability was truly impressive. They are a great example of how transparency and accountability can work together to achieve change. Here with us today is Kurt Verbeek, co-founder and strategic development officer, to accept the award on behalf of ASJ. Kurt, over to you.
I'm very surprised. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. First of all, I should say I always feel strange representing ASJ. As an English speaker, I end up getting to do this, but we have a staff of over 70 brave Hondurans, 30 of whom worked on this report exposing corruption and COVID purchasing. 2 people are in jail. The UN ended up taking over purchasing. And it's our goal at ASJ to get the state systems to work. And right now we're working on COVID vaccines. Honduras has a population of 10 million. And so far there are only 40,000 people in Honduras with 2 vaccines. So out of 10 million, only 40,000 vaccinated. And you can see some of the struggles that Honduras and lots of other countries like it are facing. So again, thank you. We will continue our work to create a more just society here in Honduras. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie, very much. And congratulations, Kurt, to you and your colleagues. Well done. The challenges of corruption are sometimes overwhelming. It's hard to know where to begin, but you and your colleagues have given us a roadmap to some very effective approaches. So we're much in your debt. Turning next then to our award for fundamental rights and non-discrimination, I want to invite Mandeep Tiwana, who is the Chief Programs Officer for Civicus, another of WJP's very important partners in this competition in helping us reach all the right people and make the right choices. Mandeep, over to you.
Many thanks to the World Justice Project for this excellent event. The 4th award to be presented today is for the theme of fundamental rights and non-discrimination. According to the 2020 World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, more countries have regressed in their fundamental rights score than any other rule of law factor over both the last year and the last 5 years. In addition to the dramatic effects of quarantines and lockdowns on freedom of movement and travel, pandemic affected human rights in 4 areas of particular concern. These are equal treatment and non-discrimination, freedoms of expression and assembly and the right to information, the right to privacy, and due process and the rights of detainees. To respond to this crisis, the World Justice Challenge encouraged project entries that address the needs of groups disproportionately affected by the coronavirus, that protected vulnerable groups such as racial and ethnic minorities, migrants, refugees, those with disabilities, children, and notably women. Protected journalists and human rights defenders, and protected the right to privacy, and addressed the rapid spread of the coronavirus to high-risk prison populations. The World Justice Project worked closely with Civicus and the International Service for Human Rights to shape the problem statement and select the finalists in the fundamental rights and non-discrimination category, and would like to thank these 2 organizations. Before announcing the winning organization, I'd like to recognize the 8 finalists in the fundamental rights and non-discrimination category. They're all winners today. They are Accelerate Release of Children, Protect Children from COVID-19 by Ter the Home Foundation, which is global, but headquartered in Switzerland. Adala's emergency COVID-19 project, demanding equal treatment and non-discrimination for the Arab minority through the Israeli legal system. Adala, the Legal Center for Arab Minority Rights in Israel. The BBJ pro bono lawyers provide access to justice and prevent torture of Burundi's most vulnerable by Burundi's Bridges for Justice, combating gender discrimination in the criminal justice system by providing holistic defense and support services, the International Legal Foundation of Afghanistan, Inua Mama Fua, the Dhobi Women Network from Kenya, Jaat Ko Prashna, which is translated in English as the question of caste, the Samta Foundation in Nepal, the refugee and immigrant women expelled from rights zone during COVID by the Guatemalan Women's Association based in Spain, securing lands, lives and justice in Santa Clara de Oceania, the Peruvian Amazon, the Forest Peoples Program of the Federation of Native Communities of Ucayali and the Institute of Legal Defense in Peru. Congratulations again to the 8 finalists. And the winner is Adala's emergency COVID-19 project, demanding equal treatment and non-discrimination for the Arab minority through the Israeli legal system by Adala, the Legal Center for Arab Minority Rights in Israel. The judges selected this project as an excellent example of a project that was effective in its use of legal remedies that led to significant results in the struggle for fundamental rights and non-discrimination of Arab minorities in Israel. Here with us today is Sausan Zaher, Deputy General Director, to accept the award on behalf of Adala. Congratulations, Sausan, and over to you.
Thank you, Mandeep, and thank you for all the judges and for the World Justice Challenge program and the participants. I'm very happy, I'm very excited, and I'm here with my other 2 colleagues, Rina Rosenberg and Rana Khalil, which all of us are excited. I think that the award is very important for us also to continue impacting the lives and the human rights of Palestinian citizens in Israel. And it will enable us as well to draw more international attention to the problem of state discrimination against Arab citizens of Israel, a national minority that comprises about 20% of the population. Adala will also be able to expand its network and partnership with international civil society organizations, learn more from their experience and how to further advocate for the rights of Palestinian citizens of Israel. We're very glad, we're very honored. This is the most important thing, and we would love to thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mandeep, and congratulations, Sausan, to you and your colleagues. And thank you for the very important work that you all do, making justice systems work for everybody. Okay, we proceed now to our 5th prize, the award for the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Legacy Prize, and I will invite Justice Ellen Gracie Northfleet, member of the WJP board and former Chief Justice of the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil and one of our judges, to present this award. Justice Northfleet.
Thank you, Betsy. I'm very honored to present this 5th award to be presented today. It is the first ever Ruth Bader Ginsburg Legacy Prize. It was launched on International Women's Day 2021, and the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Legacy Prize honors the former US Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg. Her lifelong work in service to the causes of justice, women's equality and non-discrimination, and the rule of law, and in recognition of her tremendous inspiration to World Justice Project's mission and work. Justice Ginsburg served as an honorary chair of the World Justice Project from its founding and attended 3 of its global World Justice Forums, giving keynote addresses in 2013 and 2017. I strongly recommend that you search our website for these 2 occasions, when Ruth shared with us her thoughts on equality and opportunity for all. Nowadays, most of us take for granted some of the benefits that came after much hard work and perseverance. Yet, not so long ago, as a young graduate from Columbia, Ruth almost lost the prospect of becoming a law clerk because, say, she had a family. The judge in case remarked that having a 4-year-old daughter, she might not be as productive as one of her male colleagues. To that remark, the professor who had recommended her answered that if she did not do well, he would be willing to point out another student. Ruth not only did well, but had a long and happy marriage with Professor Martin Ginsburg, raised her 2 children, Jane and James, and went all the way up to the US Supreme Court. She is a big, enormous example to all of us. As we present this first World Justice Project's first ever Ruth Bader Ginsburg Legacy Prize, we chose between the finalists, the 30 finalists of the challenge. And we tried to point out one of the projects that best exemplifies the fight against inequality and gender discrimination. So the most expected moment is now to name the winner. And the winner is Inua Mamafua Dobi Women Network, Kenya. The judges selected this project as an important example of a multifaceted approach to the fight against inequality and gender-based discrimination through provision of emergency social services and raising awareness of these women's rights to decent work. We imagine Justice Ginsburg would have appreciated this project in the context of workplace discrimination, as these workers are outside the formal employment sector, were directly affected by the pandemic, and therefore test the notion of equal protection under the law in intriguing ways. Here with us today is Grace Ngugi, the Executive Director, to accept the award on behalf of the Dobi Women Network. Grace, over to you.
I hope Grace is here. I am not Grace.
I don't hear her.
We may not have Grace with us. So I think we can all send out our congratulations virtually to our colleagues at the Dobi Women Network, and we'll certainly communicate that. We have George. Are you with the Dobi Women's Network?
Yes. Hello.
Hello, and thank you so much. I hope I'm audible enough. My name is George, and sorry, Grace, just due to some connectivity issues, she fell off, but she'll be joining shortly. But this is a tremendous win for us. It really means a lot to us. We didn't see this coming, but for the work that we've been doing to represent women who do so much in our society, but for the longest time, we have failed to give them that attention. And moving forward, we will try and see how best we can assist domestic workers in the country. They have been a faction that has been left out, but with this tremendous win, we will continue to budge on this horizon and ensure that casual domestic workers that across the country and also world over, because this is a platform that also others could emulate, to ensure that their access to justice and their ability to get services that are friendly will definitely make them feel like bona fide citizens who are entitled to equal rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Justice Northleet, and congratulations, George, to you and your colleagues. Justice Ginsburg would be very pleased. She very much committed herself to making sure that justice reached those that were otherwise excluded, and you carry that legacy forward in admirable ways. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We turn now to our final award, the award that was selected by all of you, the members of our community around the world. And to present this WJP Network Popular Vote Award, I can think of no one more suited than Nancy Ward, who has spent the last decade building that network for the world.
I am waiting to see.
Nancy is Vice President of the World Justice Project and also served as a member of our judges panel. Nancy. Nancy, you're muted.
I did it. Okay. So as Betsy said, the final award we're presenting today is to the winner of WJP's Network Popular Vote. And this winning project was selected for its inspiration and impact through a popular vote by WJP's network. Over 1,400 voters registered for a ballot through our World Justice Challenge community platform. And WJP's team then vetted and tabulated the results. So a special thank you to everyone from WJP's network who participated in this voting process. And the winner of the WJP Network Popular Vote is Accelerate Release of Children, Protect Children from COVID-19, Terre des Hommes Foundation, Switzerland, and Global. This project led to the emergency release and reintegration care of hundreds of children worldwide. Here with us today to accept the award on behalf of the Terre des Hommes Foundation is Cedric Foussard, Advocacy and Global Learning Senior Advisor for Access to Justice for Children. Congratulations to you and your team, Cedric, and I invite you now to unmute your microphone and say a few words.
Thank you very much. This is a fantastic news. We are so happy, and I speak in my name and all my colleagues. When we started this campaign more than 1 year ago now, we didn't know what the COVID-19 pandemic would have as an impact for children, directly or indirectly. But what we knew was that children in detention might have suffered the pandemic much more than those in the community. And then through this campaign, we managed to release more than 5,000 children in 30 countries, train professionals from all over the world, and organize an international campaign of advocacy to accelerate the release of children. So we are extremely pleased that it has been recognized. I often remind that 30% of the world population is under 18. And so by promoting children's rights, we are promoting the rights and the fundamental right of the vast proportion of this planet inhabitants, and we should consider that as a priority. So I'm very honored, and I would like to thank our partners because this work hasn't been done only by us. First, I wanted to thank the Pro Bono Department of Baker McKenzie, represented here today by our colleague Angela Vigil from the Pro Bono Director of Baker, but as well the other organizations such as Penal Reform International, the International Association of Youth and Family Judges and Magistrates, the International Bureau on Children's Rights, and of course, all my colleagues, and some of them are present today, like my colleague Kristen Hope and Jan Kolju, and I send them a big thanks for their support. So on behalf of Terre des Hommes, our partners, I would like to thank you very much. This is, you make my day. It was a lot of work, and we keep going, and the result of this will be the next step through the World Congress on Justice with Children in November this year. Many thanks again.
Thank you very much, Nancy, and congratulations, Cedric, to you and your colleagues. I think Hina Jelani also commented about the impact of the pandemic on children, and the impact on children is one of those long tails of the pandemic that we're going to be living with for a long time. And you and your colleagues are helping us get out ahead of that challenge. So thank you so much. And congratulations to you. Congratulations to all of our finalists. To offer a few closing remarks, let me invite William Hubbard, who is the chair of the board of the World Justice Project. William?
Betsy, thank you very much. That concludes our program. Thank you to all of you who were able to join us today to celebrate the impressive work of the 2021 World Justice Challenge finalists. WJP would also like to extend a special congratulations to the 6 organizations and their leaderships and their leaders who won World Justice Challenge Awards this year. We look forward to working with them and all of our challenge finalists in the coming months to call attention to their very important and innovative work. Of course, none of this would be possible without the financial support of our wonderful sponsors, including Microsoft, the Chandler Foundation, the Asia Foundation, the Municipality of The Hague, the Netherlands. And I'd ask you to please refer to the slide for the WJP's League of Law Firms, law departments, and other sponsors. In addition to the thematic partners who were thanked during each of the thematic awards, we'd also like to thank WJP's regional partners for the challenge: the Due Process of Law Foundation, the Bingham Center for the Rule of Law, the Asian Development Bank, the Municipality of The Hague, the Netherlands, the Igarape Foundation Institute, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, and the Asia Foundation. Thanks again to all the World Justice Challenge sponsors and partners. Finally, thank you to the 13 judges of this year's World Justice Challenge for their careful and thoughtful evaluation of the 30 finalist projects, and to the World Justice Project staff for all their efforts in organizing and running this year's World Justice Challenge. As we close out today's program, there are a few upcoming WJP activities that I want to make you all aware of. First, the next edition of the WJP's flagship report, the Rule of Law Index, will be released in October 2021. This report will take a special look at how the rule of law has been affected by the pandemic through the perceptions and experiences of ordinary citizens and rule of law experts in over 130 countries around the world. Second, I'm excited to announce that WJP's next World Justice Forum, the premier international event for the rule of law, will be held in The Hague, Netherlands, from May 30 to June 2nd, 2022. The forum will be organized around the theme of building more just communities, a rule of law agenda for a post-COVID world. We're also excited to announce that the next edition of the World Justice Challenge will be incorporated into the 2022 World Justice Forum, so please mark your calendars for this important event. Finally, until we gather again, please stay in touch through the community platform and be on the lookout for other WJP news, podcasts, and events on rule of law in your email and social media feeds. Thank you all again, and until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.